today we are going to work on we're still in the beginning, but now we're going to take some of those watercolor techniques that we did on episode 4 with the working on the wet on wet paper. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I go about working on an image. And as I'm remembering or teaching myself what I never knew, or remembering what I might have known, I'm kind of walking you through some of these steps because I'm old, so I have to speed things up a little bit here. All you young'uns, you got all that time, so we think. So what I want to show you is that we're going to work on this picture, which is a picture I took while being a passenger in a car, sitting at a light, and we had a very dramatic sunset that evening. And I liked this picture because, here, I should just use the smaller camera right now. So what I like about this picture is there's the telephone lines and the power lines there, and you have these lines going through this dramatic sunset. So what we're going to try to do is work from just our color photo, nothing too fancy, and I'm going to show you how you could take your photo and let's put that clearly. You're going to take your photo and how you would break that down. It doesn't matter, like, I could be looking at a person, but today it's a sunset. So if a lot of times people say, oh, I can't do people, I can't do this. It's when you start thinking it's just another shape, it's just this. Try working like that. You're not going to, well, maybe you will hit it off the bat right away, but just give yourself time because, like I keep saying, it's just like when you started with your crayons and you started to learn the alphabet. You're kind of starting back there with a lot of these techniques or drawings. So a lot of it is how you focus your eye and how you start looking at things. I was always and I think it comes from, well, both sides were creative in their different arenas. But on my mother's side, they were also very, very mechanical. And I kind of think that some of my skills, because I just kind of looked at how somebody made it before. And then if I had to recreate it, I just use that as my guide. And so when the big barn doors blew off of the farm in a windstorm, that's pretty much pretty basic. But my uncle was very impressed that I had rebuilt the barn doors. So anyway, I don't know, got off on that little tangent. I'm going to talk to you about what I did with this one because, as I said, I want to be able to show you the processes. I don't usually go through this many renditions of. Yesterday morning, I took this photo and I took my 9 by 12 paper and I began sketching what I saw here. I did use a ruler to look at the beginning of my lines here. I moved this corner in. I didn't want this phone pole that close to the edge of the paper. So as you can see, I moved it in here about an inch. So I started there, and then and then I had to come over here. Now, if I'm looking at this photo, if I'm just following it, my pole, oops, sorry, I was looking at my ruler. My, that center pole is almost on the center. The center is actually right here. So, in my image, because now I'm at 6, so 6 is here. So I'm not that far off from where where my pole and my resource material is. But I did shove things over a little bit. I moved that last pole over a little bit more. Now, after I drew this, because I didn't want you to sit here and have to watch me sketch this, because I do move things around, and I kind of just gave myself a real general shape of this big cloud and also of this big area, because this photo is really kind of a good demonstration, because if you squint at that, what you mainly see, you see these dark, see this big area? It's actually two different values, but see how dark that area reads. And same thing with the big cloud formation here. We can turn this into one big shape on our value study. Because what we want to do is we really want to get, from your darkest dark and your lightest light, and then just, get that middle. So with these dark clouds, the other thing is you might not be able to see it so much in my photo because it is a photo. But I was there, so I kind of, if you remember, what did it feel like? Or when you're looking and when you're taking your pictures, think about why you're taking that picture. What is it about? There at the drama, I loved the contrast of the phone poles. Now, in this picture, granted, I had it somewhere where I accidentally got some overspray on it. So this area is reading a little lighter. The darkest darks are my phone poles, and I could treat those as just a solid silhouette. But what we're going to do is we're going to build up those layers a little bit more, because if you are working with a big contrast like that, it's when a person comes up closer to your painting, if there's something a little bit more interesting for them to hold their attention, rather than just a big dark area of a flat color. I don't know if I'm speaking that clearly. Anyway, let's come back to, all right, so I did the drawing. Now, in order to save myself, because this drawing took me at least an hour, I will time myself next time. I went to my copier and I ran off a sheet, which my copier, of course, I don't have a big, I just have your domestic copier. So my sheet size is smaller than my paper size. But just for the general placement of things, and for the fact that I'm going to be repeating and kind of showing you this process in segments, that I've decided to, it's kind of to me, it's a way of cheating. But it's also a good way of, once you put all that work into your initial drawing, to be able to have a reference that if I goof things up, if I don't like what I painted, I got too dark, if I find it unusable, now I can come back to this and I can always coat the back of this paper with just your regular pencil, which of course I don't have right here in my hand, but then I can take this, lay it on my, it would be smart if I had a pencil here. I lay it on my paper and I just retrace those lines, and I can get myself started on my next sheet. So basically what I have done, and just to move these, all right, so I took one of those Xerox copies, or whatever you call them, things off my printer, and I grabbed my Vine charcoal and I began doing a tonal study, which I was using Vine charcoal. And you can see this, it's not like a straight stick, because it is a piece of vine. And so in this little dish, I have a lot of little tiny pieces of the Vine charcoal, and I have my eraser. And on this one, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Now, when you're using Vine charcoal, it's smudges quickly, and you can pick it up quickly too. So once I have gotten this to a darkness that I like, what I can do is I can work just from this, and I don't even need that color photo reference necessarily. But as you can see from my drawing, because I was able to control the value, I'm able to bring out the dark pole. That may have been what I was trying to tell you earlier. Now, after I finished this, charcoal, it is very delicate, and I just went a little bit too dark. After I finished this, I set the paper, I used aerosol spray. I'm going to come in here and just show you a little bit more detail. See how right here I've got kind of almost a band going boom, 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 a little diagonal. When you are working on your images, you want to think about how your viewer is viewing this. How does it travel through their eye? And that's what's fun about Vine charcoal, because it's you can be as non-committal with it as you want to be. I can come in here and, like, right now I'm putting in a darker line that I really want. I don't really want it that dark, but I can come in here and just wipe that back out. See how that works? And if you're like me, you just wipe it on your shirt because you forgot to put your rag in your hand. So that's another reason I always kind of keep a rag in my hand. Now, if I wanted to lighten some of these areas, I can still come in. See, I have a lot of, this is all still the same brightness as this. When I'm looking at this photo and I'm really, really squinting, see, I almost have this lopsided triangle. Well, no, it kind of goes like that. All right. So if I'm focusing on that, then that means, oh, here, I need to come, if I'm bringing that same shape into here, oh, maybe I want to extend a little bit further here. I'm going to take that gum eraser, and there again, when I'm using this, you just keep pulling it out, and it's how it cleans itself. So, and you can form this into any shape. So I can make a nice little point here, and then if I want, I can come in and just pop some of those areas and make them a little whiter. Now, you can use this gum eraser. It's kind of like a silly putty. If they still sell that stuff. But silly putty's a different, I wouldn't necessarily use it, but if that's all I had, I would. All right, so now I'm just kind of softly laying a little bit more color in here. Do you see how that when I do that, this is starting to come out a little bit further? So this is where we're talking about all those shifts that you will get. I wanted to actually come over here because right here, do you see how I've got that really white line and it just goes whoop right off the sheet? Now, if I look at my photo, you almost don't see that. You see more of this shape. So what happens if we come in here and mimic that? Let's tone that down a little bit more. I don't want it to be so noisy. Also with the Vine charcoal. Now I actually should be maybe even showing this to you on just a new copy. This is also one of the copies that, whoops, she likes to go too hard with that. I could also start with just using my darks, and this is what's nice about, I'm going to actually switch to, it's called Conti. If I have a piece in here, there's one. Conti also comes in a reddish and a white. They're firmer. They don't break as easily as the Vine, but they also are harder to erase. So it's a more permanent line. But what you'll find, like for instance, on this drawing, when I was spending the time to do just the sight drawing, it gets my mind thinking about, well, where are these colors, or for instance, all these lines, where are they leading me to? Sometimes I'm your typical artist that speaking and actually doing it. Sometimes I have to focus. So, but if you even just start yourself with those dark areas, so your darkest dark, look at your, your composition, which this looks pretty horrendous right now, but it, like on this, we have the base down here of the trees. Now I can just block all of that in. I'm going to do a more quicker, and I'm going back to my Vine charcoal. I'm going to take a smaller piece. The longer pieces are nice, like when you're doing something like, if I try to do these lines, I suppose I could still do them easy enough. Let's see if I can put my head in there. But if I have a longer piece, it just helps you to get a little bit more of your artistic message in there. Now on this go around, I am not going to, I could take the time and show you Frisket, which is a way for us to block these fine lines from our image. But what we're going to do is we're going to work in steps. Now I did do a base of the initial, and now that I'm looking at it against here, I can see easily that this area is so too light. See, look how I bounce. Let me show you this, and then I need a softer surface. Hold on. Now, I was starting to just show you this, so in case you run into it, you know what you're doing to yourself. Excuse me. All right. When I'm working on my piece of Homasote right now. So, what's happening is I'm picking up all the texture of what's under here. So that's where I'm getting that irregular pattern. I can control that. That's just my surface. All I have to do is move to a different surface. Now, your older long-time pastelists will tell you, or more people that just did a lot of drawing, a lot of times they're working with a padded surface, which is just a few sheets of newsprint or newsprint, yeah, any kind of paper that you have. Because if you give a couple layers up underneath there, it softens the harder surface, but you will not see as much of that pattern showing up. So let's see what happens when I come in here now. All right, I'm going to come in here and get this little darker area. Because this corner, this is still a layer of clouds coming through. So as I'm working on this, sorry, this is a layer of clouds down here. And as I'm working on that, and I squint my eyes, the value changes from one side of the pole to the other. But it's definitely darker than my little shape over here. So if I'm coming in with my trees, and this is just for the values. It's not necessarily going to give me as much information as I might at this point. Most people probably also do these in a smaller version, but we're going to keep it big here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. A lot of artists will show that I'm kind of moving the clouds around as I'm doing this, so that's why you see me stop. I shouldn't be doing that. I should just be going, that's just how. On my picture, I actually have my cloud coming up over my pole, and this is a good way. In this version, my pole is ending like right here. So I've made my cloud go up a little higher than what's there. It's your picture. You do whatever you want. We're just kind of going for that general idea. Now, if I really wanted to, let me just finish this thought. Okay, I wanted to join these areas because that's how they're reading. They're reading in, we've got one big shape here. And then just look at the shape. What does it remind you of? I had somebody, I was showing them a finished painting, and they said, look for the cloud, or look for the faces. And they apparently worked at a relative's framing shop, and that was one of the things she was taught. Nice opportunity that would have been for me, but I didn't really have a lot of people saying, well, you could also do this kind of thing. As I was doing student teaching and we were hanging this little student show, one of the frame shops allowed our school to come in and well, actually the student teacher came in and framed everybody's work. So that was kind of cool because then I got to see how the real people at least cut a mat, if nothing else. I think I could move this cloud down, but see how quickly I can just move that. So I won't, I guess, go through this whole thing. I was going to try to get this done in an hour so we don't have hours after hours of all these. Now, this is another thing that we want to think of as we're doing this. If this area here is going to be my lightest area, I need my contrast to, I'm just going to come here and let's be real bold. All right, see, in here I do have a lighter value. And by putting this value next to that, you're going to let that pop. And then when you come in with that even darker value, it's really going to start singing to you. So, but in the meantime, we're going to have to tone down all these other areas because the watercolorist, well, at least one way of doing your paintings is the point of interest is where the lightest light and darkest dark are. Because the artist is basically showing you, boom, this is what you need to focus on here. Kind of. And sometimes it's just atmospheric. I mean, you've seen, I'm sure, the paintings where, you know, they do the salt marsh, but they're just doing it more in colors that are just pleasing. Not necessarily the correct colors, but you have seen, I'm sure, like a purple based something. All right. So you can spend as much time on things like this as you want. If another way to start with your darks is just pull out your markers. I can still come over. Oh yeah, that's another thing I want to show you. When I am doing I'm actually working on my original drawing. I really shouldn't do that in case my magic marker floats through. But my 3-post, if I block in that dark, and if I have this off to the side, it's going to help me read what's going on when I'm starting to work on those clouds. So now let's just do a real basic. Another thing I've been experimenting with, TomTom makes a set of markers, and they come in all different kind of values. And to me, it's a personal choice. A lot of designers, you know, you see all those different color markers and stuff, and that's just how it's like working with pastels. You think, oh, I need this color here, and you look and you grab the closest match that you have in your kit. And why was I telling you that? Let's see. Maybe we better have more coffee. All right. The other things that stick out here are you've got this light. Am I leaning into my picture? Sorry. I don't know if I am or not. It's kind of right over that, and I'm going to just keep with that, and boom. Yeah, and then all of a sudden you have a lamppost. And that's what I liked about this image, is that the contrast. Now, if I want to, I can come in with all of these lines, and even when you're getting ready to paint, this is, you know, it's good for you to, you do kind of this, just a practice. You'll you know, you see artists do that all the time, kind of non-committal. When I started back painting, it really wasn't until, let's see, I'm in my 40s. I came out here, and I was working at, the highest priority was becoming sober. And so I've been spending the last 20 years relearning life sober. And so one of the good things about when I came out here and I ended up in a detox, I was lucky enough to go to a aftercare for like 10 days. And then that was really helpful for me because I learned a lot more about my disease. I probably am. I would love to get a genetic testing because I'm pretty sure we must have that alcoholic gene in there. And I've got lots of genes. But, nobody grows up thinking, I want to be an alcoholic when I grow up. And I think that nowadays with the genetic testing and things, if you can give that person that information as they're growing up, they'll know to avoid it. It's just like the diabetic who knows they can't have that piece of licorice, or it just doesn't work for them. So that's what I did discover, and when I found out that information, because I was raised with it's all willpower, food and alcohol. That was all moderation. Well, whatever. If you drink enough, you'll get yourself to the point where the body really doesn't know how to focus until you have said amount of alcohol in it. And that's when you're really getting yourself in the danger zone. But I am fortunate as I am one of the people that am able to continue on my journey of sobriety, where a lot of people don't even make it. So I'm quite lucky. But that is part of the reason why people go, oh, why didn't you do something more creative? I was trying to keep myself in creative jobs, but what I discovered, or as I think back now, it was my first couple jobs when I was just doing silk screening. I loved the fact that every day was different. You always had something going on, and there was a little bit of, look, I bring my head in. Sorry, I'm drawing some of these lines. I'm going to get off of this subject, and we'll come back. All right, so here's another way to work on your grayscale. So there's all different approaches. This episode's going to end up being on the grayscale, actually. As I said, this vine, I can pick that up. I can move it around. I can start to build those areas. And in here, I can just give myself those rough edges. So as you're doing this and you're transferring, you think, well, okay, I got that one here. These clouds are kind of nice because they are staggered. But I wouldn't want to come right over here and bring my next cloud to that. I'm going to drop it like it is. Drop it like it's hot. Okay. See, now I'm going over that magic marker. I'm not going to smear anything. So if I had taken the time to put all the phone lines and little things. But this is a quicker way. I was being a little bit fussier with this one, and I was just using the vine charcoal and the Conti. Now, once I have come in here, and I'm not showing you all the little magic that can happen. If I make all this a little bit darker. And this is another thing that it's great. I'm finding, I really miss working just black and white. And I miss working with charcoal. When I started, it was a lot of charcoal, pencil, charcoal. I don't think I use charcoal as much. This is vine charcoal. And there's also a willow. There again, the willow is a little bit harder, and it doesn't lift up as much or as easy. Now what I can do, once I've made this area a little darker, I can also come in here let's get this guy. I should have shown you a kind of a grayscale that you can do to tell yourself this is as dark as I can get. And that's another good thing about doing your clouds in a with the Vine charcoal, because you can't get as dark as you might. I don't want my clouds to read darker than these static forms in real life, because they're just not going to be that dark for this picture. But there does need to be a contrast. All right, so here we are. This kneaded eraser, and I'm showing you again, this is how you clean it and how you shape it. You just keep pulling it back on itself. And I'm going to make a little point here. I can use this as a drawing tool. I might just press it in there. There again, like your little silly putty that you picked up your cartoons with. See, a lot of kids' toys have those kind of creativity factors, and then we forget all about it. But I don't know. A lot of people don't bother getting the paper anymore. When we moved to the country, I remember my mother, she started getting more magazines because she knew the local paper didn't have a lot of national news in it. And they downplay a lot of things. And you'd hear about something big in the world and it would be on page 4. But a lot of our local papers are still like that. We believe in real news, so we do support the local journalism as much as we can. Not big on the internet with all of its misinformation. Alright, let's come up here and get a little bit lighter behind here. Now that starkness of my magic marker, it's kind of one of the reasons I don't always work with magic marker. You know what? Let's turn this into different ways to do your grayscale. So over here I'm still pretty light. Come in and give myself a little bit more with my original. Because the last thing I want to show you on this, if when you're doing, now here's that little bit deeper cloud. So we have that deeper cloud comes right over here, but when it gets to this side, it's lighter. So it's not as dark as over here. I'm brushing a little bit lighter right now. But I'm squinting my eyes and I'm looking to see if I can match just the general darkness of some area. There again, with these organic shapes, you can change the direction as much as you want. They're your clouds. But, if you're doing this type of black and white value study, then why not have some fun with it? Because this way you can pre-plan things a little bit better. Now, I realize now, and I didn't realize at the time, but apparently the college programs and the arts and stuff. At that time, we were being taught to paint what we feel and be very experimental. And for one thing, as an artist, I didn't know what I felt. I was too young to know anything, is what my philosophy was. So I didn't know what I wanted to say as an artist. I'm getting there. I'm starting some paintings on environment and also on Holocaust. I find it incredible that the amounts of history that we have decided that, oh, we don't need to tell anybody about this. It's very sad. And so we can do what we can by trying to spread positivity, I guess, is a start. Because I'm a little bit confused by some people that when I grew up as a Methodist, in one of our songs, they'll know we are Christians by our love. And I don't know. I'm having a little bit harder time seeing some of that love. So sometimes everybody's religion is quite confusing to me. I'm more impressed with people that walk the walk. Everybody can talk. You got to walk the walk. You shouldn't have to tell people you're a good person. You should just emanate it. Of course, nobody tends to walk around going, I'm a butthead. But they're out there. All right, so as you can see, I can sit here and play with this for a long time. Now, let's say I'm stopping here. I'm going to give my eyes a rest, and I'm going to come and look at this tomorrow because I want to have a fresh eye when I look at that. See, oh, did you see? Right now I use that Conti over here, and it's picking up the texture of this paper underneath. So I just wanted you to see that your materials, it's important to get to know what they do and how they do what they do. And see how I can, where's my rag? I can just brush this away. If I had my little paper towels, which I do, you can use a paper towel. Ooh, and a roll of tape came out. Bonus! So, oops, this is Viva. I like the guys that have the little, even the quarter tears. That's not a Viva though, but at least it's in a half sheet. And you can always use crunched up paper towel. And I want to see what that, see if I rub the vine charcoal as opposed to the Conti, they leave heavier deposits on the Conti. It doesn't remove with your finger the way this one will. Excuse me. All right. I can see already here I'm not dark enough, and I need to put that Conti away, keeping you with the vine charcoal for now. I had a roommate my sophomore year of college that she actually left like within the first couple, maybe it was the first week. She was afraid to go to, she wanted to become a jeweler and was intimidated by the fact that she was going to have to take a drawing class. And so drawing's always intimidating to everyone and anyone. You know, I always wonder, you know, did she become a famous jeweler, or she could have an Etsy shop for now. All I know, you don't always have to go through a college degree to be pretty successful. With art, you just need time, is the way I look at it, because now that I've been given this gift of being able to stay home and use my time in my creatives, it's really eye-opening. It's like, oh, now I can see why my friends were like, well, I'm going to marry this man because he makes this amount of money. But I didn't grow up with that. I have to have somebody else paying the bills. But I wasn't making good money, so I could have used somebody else paying the bill if I wanted to stay home. But that didn't work, so I am so grateful for this time now because it's like, oh, now I can focus on relearning what I never learned or what I forgot. So, speaking of alcoholism, one of the other things I did learn with that 10-day outpatient program run by also people that were recovering alcoholics themselves. And they are good. They can call anybody's bluff. So it was a real learning situation because you had people at all levels of the disease and coming in and coming out. Very, very eye-opening. But it was good for me. I don't think I would have been still sober if I tried to be sober in the state I was in. Physically, all those weeks. But the actual location, I lived at the same time because one thing, now when I did go through the detox, granted, I'm a new kid in town, so I don't know anybody. I don't know the towns. I got to know the towns by the meetings, and I was a good meeting goer. And I did wonder, well, what happened to all those people that, used to be here? I came at a good time because they had a lot of treatment centers in the area, apparently. And so there were a lot of people in various forms of recovery. And I was actually fortunate to be in that last graduating class before the hospital shut down the program because insurances noticed that they weren't making enough money on that. It was because people don't always go to detox and then that's it. That was eye-opening. It was like old home days sometimes. So when that first night coming in there in the check-in and all these people, oh, hi, how are you back? And it's like, what? So I didn't realize that people go through and in and out. But, as long as you keep trying. But I was a good meter, and all my friends were alcoholics. So I got to know this area and through all my alcoholic friends who were working on recovery. And so I was surrounded by a lot of support. It was good. And it's been good. I used to wonder, what happens to all these people? Because meeting makers make it. And that is true. And I remember thinking, what happened to this person and that person? And you do find a period, at least for me, I found a period where, it's like, okay, I'm feeling, I got the tools, I can cut back. And so when I was able to cut back on the amount of meetings I was going to, which I would go to a minimum of 7 a week, sometimes I'd double it up on the weekends just because it was positive for me, and that was the priority, is relearning life soberly, which I knew I could get to because I had grown up as a sober person. It was only when I started drinking. Gee, amazing how that works. But if you have the gene for it, what happens, and this was good information for me, because it was taught to me as willpower. And you have, if only you just, whatever. But in the person who has carried the gene of alcoholism, what I understand is happening is that when they are drinking, they get to a point where their body is saying more and more and more. And the normal drinker, that's the point where they're like, oh, no, I cannot put that down. And that's why the alcoholic's like, what? You're going to leave that drink? Let me have that. But it's because our cells are like firing and going, hey, this is great. So I didn't realize that at the time. It was, but I was in bar situations all the time because I was playing music. And everybody wants you to drink with them. I remember still the first year of college, standing around at it was Oktoberfest or something. So you had to have your obligatory, is that even a word? You had to have your beer there. And I remember just standing there and people would go, you still drinking that same beer? It's so warm. And I was like, oh. But at that time, I didn't drink enough to actually notice the effects. It was the buildup of trying to keep up with the boys. Because then I worked a pizza job, and everybody hang out together afterward and shoot the doo-doo. But there was not alcohol in our family. It was the next door neighbors had the booze, but we were raised in that tea party, and not tea party, teetotaler they call them. But see, I'm the kid that you don't tell me don't put your hand on the stove and leave it there. I learn better if I am told the results also. It just makes more sense in my head. So I'm sure there's some ism that somebody will say, oh, you're suffering from this. No, you don't. It's just part of your personality. So don't get too worried about it. I don't think I had good tools going out in the real world because things like, communication, nope. In my family, you learned if you got mad, you just stomped off and you never told anybody what you were so mad about. And then when you came back out in the room and you would calm down. But, so, conflict resolving? No, I don't think I really grew up with that. All right, so I'm going to shut up because I am getting to the point where, all right, we just turned this episode into more of a grayscale value. Different ways that we can work on trying to get just our grayscale going here. I am going to... No, I'm not going to show you tom-toms right now because I wasn't thinking about that. I was actually going to be taking you through this, which is the first layer. But I might just stop you right here with how do we get something that's going to tell us what our values are going to be. So I'm getting some interesting things going on in here. As you can see, I could still, at least I can see from my light, I can come in here and there's like almost a little triangle there. You don't have to give yourself every detail at this point. But because when you're playing with your paint, especially when you're doing clouds, you don't want to sit there and go, oh, my cloud is like right. You can follow it to a point, but be a little bit more dramatic. So the next point, if I'm happy with this and I say, okay, I want to kind of set this, because if I just let this piece of paper float around the art room without some kind of protection on it, I'm going to keep smearing all these areas. So I am not big on using aerosol anythings within the house. I save that kind of art for when I can go outside. I actually use my old grill as a spray booth these days. And but I'm going to show you what I do if I'm working with something like this in the house and what I will use. I have, all right. See how I left that big hole? It's not going to be that bright when but see how, I think this is excellent. I just had so much fun with how quickly you can just lighten up areas and bring that light back in. So, and these are very inexpensive materials, so, but the amount of good they do for you and your painting, I think it's pretty evident. So, and you know, if you feel like you want to bring your cloud over a little bit further, just go for it, you know. See, now when we're paying attention to where these light spots are, when we begin our watercolor, that information is going to be really important to us because we're watercolorists and we are not going to, well, we're going to work transparently. I'm still trying to get myself used to watercolor with opacity, and my heart just likes the watercolor, the way it reads. So I'm not being too fussy down here about those trees. We just know it's dark down here. We can take care of that later. We're looking more for what's going on in this main general area. Okay. Now, as I did say, I did do this drawing the other day. And what I did once I was done is I used this Spectrafix Degas fixative. Okay, it is odor-free, non-toxic, all-natural, all-media. And it's perfect for soft pastel, pan pastel, oil pastel, which I did not remember, chalk, Conte, colored pencil, graphite, charcoal, ink, markers, mixed media. So it really covers a lot of different products. And then you can use it on paper. Yupo, which that's it's like a plastic, and it works for alcohol inks, and you can do watercolors on it. We'll get into that. Canvas, ceramic, glass, fabric, leather, wood, and stone. It's everything. So anyway, what I like about this is that it is in a spritzer bottle, as opposed to this fixative, which is, I'm just going to lay those right there. Let me get a good shot. So this is the Latour, the Selenier. She's asking too much of her vocal abilities too early in the morning. So this is a fixative I use on the soft pastels if I'm spraying them outdoors. This is something I will use as a holding for something like this. And I'm not, a lot of people don't like to use fixatives at all because it will darken, and I'm just like, I don't know, it's my, this is, I'm not going to frame this. This is just my working piece. I'm not really that concerned with that, and I don't think it's going to darken it that much. So even if I came in here and wanted to, this has already got one layer of this on, so it's holding it for the most part. If I decide to come in here and do a little bit more, I have that ability to, I can still work over the top of this. Some fixatives, when you're at the store, read the can, because some of the fixatives will be a final fixative, and others will be considered a working fixative. If it's a working fixative, that means that it's actually going to kind of give you a little bit more tooth. So if you are working on something and you have that base, and you want to stop and take a look at it. Now what I do is I will kind of pick it up and I put it right here. All right. I'm kind of dropping the spray onto it. So I look at it the same way that I do when I am spritzing my paper. And you should probably be working over maybe newspaper or something so you're not getting it all over your desk. She says to herself as she wipes up the spots. Now, don't freak out, because when you do, this is just a piece of not newspaper, but copy paper. So that's very absorbent. That's why we were saying we don't want to practice our drawing, or not our drawing, but our brush strokes on, well, you can practice your brush strokes, you should, on the cheaper papers. But they're going to absorb all that moisture really quickly. So as you can see from the back side here, you know how uneven I'm actually spritzing this. It doesn't concern me. I am going to like just kind of keep saturating it. So what I like about that is that it's a pump. I don't get a big cloud of aerosol as I would if I were using a fixative that is an aerosol like this. So I recommend that you use these, like maybe go outside and open your garage door if you have a garage or some kind of overhang where you're protected from rain or whatever. But if you can work outside with the sprays, that's the good thing. But indoors, I do find I like this Degas fixative because I can just spritz that. I'm going to let it sit and dry because now, as you can see, I've gotten even more saturated. Not a biggie. Okay? So, same thing with this guy. This is the one that we have the magic marker on. Let's see if it does really work on marker, or does it start to spread. And if it does, who cares? This is just our tonal value study. So, as you can see, art takes time. Because here I thought I was going to even walk you through the first parts of doing this sky. And I actually am not going to do that today. But we'll pick up from where we left off here. So remember, we've only got our grayscale. But next, we'll begin moving into the colors. All right, so look for that episode. And to be continued, my friends. Go out, spread joy.